All right, this is sort of a offshoot of Cinema Dream. Today we, as in me, Kip, and
MadKat Melody.
there's a little bit of a delay, but that's fine. I'm gonna let it rock. We will be reviewing Beyond the Infinite Two Souls,
Seconds.
directed by what? I said souls, and you said seconds, and it's minutes.
Okay.
So we're both stupid.
I don't mind being stupid with you.
Oh God, that makes it worse. All right. All right, this is sort of an offshoot of Cinema Dream. This one is going to be bi weekly if everything works out. I am joined by,
MadKat Melody.
and we will be reviewing.
Beyond the Infinite 2 minutes.
It's a rough start, but I'll take it. Okay, Matt, just off the top, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer with the options that I've provided. I don't want you to elaborate. We can elaborate a little bit later, okay?
All right.
Okay, so in the grand scheme of things, in totality of the entire film, redundant, I know, enjoyable, somewhat enjoyable, or unenjoyable?
Enjoyable.
Okay. For me, in the grand scheme of the entire film, I would say unenjoyable. I'll let you take the floor.
All right. So, Beyond the Infinite 2 minutes is a time travel movie, technically. I suppose you could consider it. And I am a sucker for time travel movies. It's also a comedy, which science fiction comedy I think is pretty hard to do. But when somebody pulls it off right, it always tends to be what I'm looking for. There's a little bit of crime. The sweet spot for me is like a science fiction action crime comedy. If I could any movie like that, generally I'm going to love it. There's not really any, well, I guess there's no, I wouldn't say there's action. So this is one of those movies I feel like is tailor-made for me.
Okay.
There were some scenes in it that were silly, and the dialogue very much seems like the filmmakers were more interested in doing this whole gimmick than actually setting up characters and their lives and their backstories. But it takes place over the course of, well, it's supposed to be in real time, so I guess it takes place basically over the course of an hour. So I think realistically you wouldn't really get into people's backstories all that much in that hour. I think I liked, except for the antagonists, I liked every single character, even the characters which when they came in I didn't think I would like. I ended up like feeling for them. So there was a lot for me to like about the movie. I could see things that people wouldn't like about the movie because it's a little stunted, but and there's one big thing that I didn't like about it, but that wasn't enough to ruin it at all for me.
What was that big thing?
Well, when it gets to the end, I'm a stickler for, and usually it happens. I get upset in like movies with magic or movies with ghosts or demonic possession kind of thing, where somewhere at the end they attempt to explain the supernatural elements in the movie, and sometimes that can be my favorite part of the movie, but usually it's ruined for me because I tend to go into movies, and if there's something that's a little weird to jump off the suspension bridge of disbelief, then I just make it up in my head how it makes sense. And so I construct an elaborate like alternate physics for myself that makes it make sense. And then if they get to the end of the movie and they try to explain something and it's not as satisfying as what I thought up for myself, it all comes crashing down is what sometimes happens. So at the end of this movie, they they try to bring in the larger world of like there's time cops and what happens if you get into a time paradox, and it didn't seem to me, maybe I'm foolish, like the movie was going towards opening up to all this stuff. But as I said, it's more of a comedy than some movies, so I can kind of forgive it for being silly, especially since it's so short a film.
Yeah, it's the runtime is literally like 70 minutes and 30 seconds, I think,
Right.
which definitely I think worked in its favor, to be honest.
Right, because it's like got a lot of energy. It doesn't want to let up that energy.
So, I well, first I'll start off what was impressive about this film. I believe this was the director's his debut, and it was almost entirely shot on a cell phone. It's not just one entire take, but they kind of have they have a smart way of going about it by every time that they show these monitors
Hmm.
that are very important to the film. Every time they zoom in on the monitor and you see the actors on the monitor, but you don't see the actors viewing themselves on the monitor, they're making cuts. And obviously, there are separate cuts when the actors are focused in on one item and you can hear them talking. It's a bit of ADR, but it's done. It's done really well. So I think for a directorial debut, it's impressive on a,
Technical level.
I wouldn't say technical level because there's a lot in the mise en scène of things. There's a lot to be desired. However, because it's shot on a phone, it does feel a bit pointless to kind of really look at it under the persnickety technical lens that I normally would. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even if a film is quote unquote bad, which I don't think this movie is bad, it's still impressive that they finished it. I don't think people understand how much work goes into filmmaking. And if you complete a film, you should pat yourself on the back, regardless of if it's phenomenal or if it sucks, because you did something that was monumentally art. And when I started watching the film, after about 5 minutes, I was like, why does this seem like a college final, you know, like, oh, make a
Hmm.
short film for your final. That's very much how it felt. And then once I looked into it, I was like, oh, okay, because it's not his college final, but it kind of kind of is in a way. It's shot on the phone. The budget was extremely small. It's very clear because the film took place in one location. There were two locations within the movie, but it was all in the same location. But they made do with what they had, and I think that that is extremely impressive. I'm not a big fan of the found footage. I'll be honest, I hate the found footage horror genre. It's just not my thing. I remember being younger and Blair Witch Project came out and everybody was going nuts on it. And that was the first found footage film I had seen, and I never got into it. I just don't like that type of camera storytelling. With that being said, this iPhone or whatever phone they were using, it was nice to see that at times, although he was recording on a phone, there were times where he still tried to treat it as if it was like a legit camera for filming. In the intro, there's like a pan sweep from the top left of the screen that goes down. And I'm like, wow, that's something that you would normally do like on a camera rig or whatever in a swivel. He didn't have that, but he still did it anyways. And then, you have to, with a phone, you have to do a lot more stabilization than you would if you had a proper like filming setup. So very extremely, that's like the highlight of the film for me. The fact that this guy just came in, directorial debut, and did all of this. Although it's a short film, it doesn't matter. Like he had a shoestring budget and he made it happen. It was just him, the actors who I believe were a part of a troupe, most of them, like an acting troupe that was coming through town. And then the scenario writer who I can't remember her name, so I'll just say it in the intro. But yeah, it was a small crew and they did good for what they had. I guess I'll go ahead.
Well, I just was thinking about some of the things you said. I
Mm-hmm.
know that they used a variety of cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And like they said, they filmed stuff beforehand that was going to be featured on the screens.
Mm-hmm.
And I can appreciate, well, so I think it's still impressive because you can see on the during the credits like what they used, and they still had to
Yeah.
handhold a lot of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and they were in this place that was an actual cafe that they liked, that they used, and so it feels like, it doesn't feel like a set, and it couldn't, because if you were just a low budget like TV shows, for instance, you can kind of tell it's a set because they're only showing certain angles. But this felt very, I mean, to me it was very cozy. Like I could go there, I'd like to go there. In fact, knowing that it's a real place, like I wonder if it's going to make it more popular. Like it could be an event spot to go to, even though it's such a small movie. uh
Possibly. I don't know how the film did financially, but in Japan, but possibly.
yeah, you said short film. Like it is half as long as most movies, but what would you say is the cutoff for like what constitutes a short
So
film?
I'm saying short film, but if I were like like worked for a review outlet, this would not be considered a short film, right?
Right.
Your average film is at least a little over 90 minutes. Most films I feel like have a runtime of an hour and 46 minutes around there, but it is short. It's an hour and 10 minutes, 70-minute film. But for a review outlet, no, it would not be considered a short film.
Yeah.
I did speak about how, wow, my brain just died. Okay. Uh, wow, that was weird.
It's scary because I know when you don't like a film, you want to get like the positive out first. And one of the things you say
Yeah.
multiple times is like, "Oh, it's hard making any film, whether it's a good film or a bad film.
Well,
Like a
I
film
don't,
is an achievement."
I want to be clear. I don't know if this is what you're getting at. Maybe I should have let you finish. But I want to be clear. I'm not giving you like a sticker because you completed the race. I know that's pretty much what I said, but like I feel that way for any film, especially if you have a film with no budget. I truly don't
Yeah.
believe people understand how hard filmmaking is.
I know from trying to, like, I like writing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
trying to write stories, trying to write books, like, that's already hard.
Yeah.
And then the
Easy as hell till you
difficulty,
got to write an action scene and you like, wait, what?
well, the difficulty multiplies by how many people are involved. So if you're writing a book, that's
Yeah.
one person involved, right?
Yeah.
And then if you have actors, like even a movie, a small movie that doesn't have a lot of characters,
Mm.
like this movie had what, 7 actors in it. That's a lot of people to organize. Like, even if I'm having a party or like a dinner or get together, having like 7 people on the same schedule can be hard on itself. But aside from it being just a movie, and movies always being hard to make, I feel like this is an achievement above and beyond that. And I appreciated in the credits how they showed you them going through the work, because it felt like a Jackie Chan at the end of all the Jackie Chan movies. They would show Jackie Chan like falling, and he was having a difficult time. You get a sense that it was a fun project, but it was also a difficult project because he's doing something special. And I felt like when I was watching this, I felt like if I was on the project, I would feel accomplished because we're making a movie, but extra accomplished because we're making something that not everybody making a movie is doing.
Mm. I feel like a lot of people are doing that. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, because they get to this point, because I was already interested in the film when I heard the blurb.
Right. You said
Like,
they had you at the concept.
right.
Huh.
And so if they had just had that concept and they played around with it, in fact, the first like third of the movie, they're just talking to themselves. And I'm laughing because it's funny that I'm watching basically all the scenes in the movie twice, because they're going upstairs,
It
downstairs,
was 3
upstairs.
times. You
Yeah.
saw it. You were watching it twice for like a good 5 minutes, and then they decided to go above and beyond and make it 3 times. That's actually a criticism that I have to go on.
Oh, okay. You didn't like that. I felt like it fit with the tone. I was laughing at watching it twice.
Yeah.
And especially when it's not long before they switch it up and he goes and sees the girl, which is an amazing comedic beat, I think, that she says no and he's so excited. And then his employee is like, "Oh, but you have
You're
to."
talking about the barber's daughter who works next door. The main character has a crush on the
Right.
barber's daughter.
Right, when he sees her and he asks her to come to his show, and she says she's not into music, which is just helps the punchline for me. And then he comes back and he's like, "See, I hate time travel." And his barista or whatever is like, "Oh, but you have to tell yourself to go ask for the date, otherwise we're gonna create a paradox, right?"
Right. Yeah.
So he creates it and then he goes and sulks in the corner. And I felt like that was an interesting, like, I was already enjoying, I know you weren't, but I was already enjoying just the running up and down stairs and thinking, like, how long can they keep this going? Like watching Whose Line Is It Anyway or something, and being like, how long are they going to be able to keep up the energy for this one joke before they go on to the next,
Yeah, but I feel like each delivery is on the same topic, but it's different jokes. Whereas, well, man, I'll let you continue. Sorry.
No, you go.
So, really quick, pivoting back to the ending, I always appreciate it when they either show bloopers or them making the film,
Mhm.
because it makes. I hate parasocial relationships, I truly do, but it sort of makes you feel like they're a family, you know? Even though they're all just actors, it makes me feel like they're a family when they're working on this production. So I did appreciate that. I had a lot of issues with this film. You were speaking about how, there's a bit where you're watching every scene twice, and then I added that it goes into 3 times shortly afterward. So this takes up, keep in mind the film is 70 minutes. This takes up almost 30 minutes of the film, all of this. And the issue, let me just start by one by one. This film is a reminder of why I'll be honest, I don't watch as many Japanese films. Well, no, I still watch a lot of live action Japanese films. I don't really watch too many live action Japanese shows. The last shows I watched was The Naked Director and Tokyo Girl. And my issue with live action Japanese acting, I feel like there are 2 types, right? There's your stoic, reserved internal acting until So all those emotions finally like build up and come out at some pivotal point in the film. Examples of this are Drive My Car, Tony Takitani, Sayonara Itsuka, Nobody Knows. These are films that I would consider either some of the greatest films of all time or just excellent films. Okay. And then there's the other side where it's this. And again, I don't think it's a bad film. I just found it unenjoyable. It's where the actors and their portrayal of the characters they represent isn't transformative. Okay. Keep in mind that this is my opinion, and I've seen a hell of a lot of Japanese live action media. I've been watching it since I was a kid. Doesn't mean, oh, I'm automatically right. I'm just saying
everybody appreciates your pedigree.
I'm just saying my opinion is informed. The acting isn't transformative, and nearly every mannerism, emotion, just overall character interaction feels significantly over the top in a very slapstick afternoon sketch comedy type of manner. It's just overacting dialed up to 1000, you know? It's like take your telenovelas, take your Israeli soap operas, your American All My Children soap operas, your K-dramas, and you just ramp it up to like 50,000. And to me, that's that side of Japanese acting. Honestly, I feel like 70% of their live action media has this issue. You get the same type of acting across the board, regardless of what genre you're in. This acting that you saw in this comedy sci-fi, you can see in horror, you can see in a drama, you can see in just a pure action, you can see in a thriller, in a suspense. It takes the tone that the premise is setting and what you're seeing creates a dissonance, and it undercuts any type of it undercuts any type of emotional or I guess severe moment that is requiring a certain type of reaction from the viewer. It undercuts it through its overacting. So it takes the impact and it goes away. Kind of like how Marvel movies have the issue where the stakes are just not there. They're telling you the stakes are there, and then they're making a ham sandwich joke 2 seconds later. And it's like the stakes just, oh yeah, I get it. All the people disappeared, half of the earth disappeared, but I don't really care because you just kept cracking jokes over everything and it just doesn't feel severe. So these moments where you're walking down the street looking sad because your family's gone, I'm just waiting for the next joke.
Yeah, you get burned one too many. Don't you think it fits? I think I would probably be where you are if I had seen as much live action Japanese media as you, and I got burnt out with this type of acting. But considering this is a comedy, don't you think it fits more in this kind of scene? Like, I can understand. I remember watching Seven Samurai, right? And one of the I don't remember any of the samurais' names, but one of the samurai, he's like the guy at first they don't want to bring along, and he like tags along, and he's the most emotional one. And when the main character in Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes goes and sulks in the corner, you know, even after this big show of like, oh, she said yes, it did remind me of that one samurai. And it was weird when I saw that because I thought this samurai is weird, right? Like normal people don't act like that. But at the same time, he's the only samurai that acts like that. So I was like, okay, this guy is weird. There's weird people in the world. So another thing that made me appreciate Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes is, yes, they are. I think it's funny. We both talked about sketch shows, how it felt like they were sketch show characters.
Yeah, if you go. Sorry.
No, yeah, I brought up Whose Line Is It Anyway? What were you going to say?
I was just saying, like, if you are in Japan and you turn on the television, you're bound to run across a billion Japanese sketch shows.
Yeah.
And the over-the-topness in those shows, you will see in actual dramas and films.
Yeah, and even animation. I remember the criminal they had in this, the bad guy, gave me vibes. Like, it made me remember when I was watching the Confessions of a House Husband, something like that, which I didn't like. And so I recognized these things that I had seen before, but at the same, and you're talking about Marvel and how the jokes undercut, any real emotional scenes you're supposed to have, they're ruined, right? Because you're just waiting for the next joke.
That's either the jokes do or the CG does, the horrible CG.
Right. And so that's a problem for me when there's an actual strong emotional scene that's ruined, as opposed to a scene like
him lamenting that the girl wasn't receptive towards
no, because I'm thinking I was under I thought it was suspenseful at the end of the movie, Beyond the Infinite 2 Minutes, when the girl gets taken away by the criminals, right? And you're thinking time, which helps because it's a one take, quote unquote, movie and it's in real time. So I'm thinking like they're discussing, they're arguing, they're fighting over the knife. The one guy's, doing his thing on the screen. He's like, there's a
Yeah.
joke moment. What are you guys so serious for? And all this time I'm thinking bad things could be happening to her, right?
Mhm.
And then you get up to the third floor and they're like arguing about this terrible knot tying job that they're doing with her, right? It's like a Laurel and Hardy skit, it looked like, was going on while the people downstairs were fighting over the knife. And I was thinking, oh, it's not that kind of movie. Like the kind of movie it is like if I'm watching a kid's movie and, Home Alone, the two guys in Home Alone aren't going to end up or something, So it's like it's a different world.
No,
So
I don't. I feel like you said something that kind of went over my head, but I'm kind of glad it did. So go on.
so when I got to the third floor, when and he goes to save the girl, and they're doing this bit with the ropes, I was like, I felt like I understood more completely what world I'm in.
Right. So at no point did I think the film was going for. I don't even like this movie, but was going for Titanic type of emotions.
Are you saying you don't like Titanic?
Yeah, I don't like Titanic. No.
Okay, just clearing that up. You keep going.
So here's the thing: is that this film is pretty consistent in the tone that it goes with. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It does something and it does one thing. The issue that comes into play with the overacting is the characters, where the only character that's kind of different is Kato. The girl, his love interest, who I'm struggling to remember her name at the moment, I know Megumi. She is not much of a character.
No.
You get a glimpse of her, and then she comes in near pretty much the end of the film, right? So you have the low-level gangsters, and then you have his barista, and then the other three friends. If you separate Kato effectively, these other characters, that's four characters, they all are effectively the same in their acting and their mannerisms.
I wouldn't.
And I would. So you can explain why you wouldn't, and I'll explain why I would. Every time that they react to something, I can understand it when they first encounter what's going on, when it's compared to Kato's more laid back shocked. But the fact that it just constantly keeps going, it becomes very repetitive, the way that they react to things, because it's a very one way type of thing. Even when they're in danger, it's still as if it's party time to them in their portrayal of fear. And the fact that we're bouncing between the center of the cafe, the left of the cafe, and upstairs repeatedly, the film is kind of ad nauseum in its mechanisms, if you will. So although the way they approach the film with their budget is new, it's just undercut by this acting style that I honestly really feel like plagues Japan.
So do you think you would enjoy it if they remade it like an American film company remade it?
I wouldn't want an American film company to make it. It's a Japanese film.
Because one of the things about it is the guys who wrote it and made it. There was a movie previous to this, which was like a proof of concept type movie.
Mhm.
And it was just a guy talking to his future self through the TV screen, right? And so they played around with getting the actors to speak the script out to the second, certain words to the second. It was like a precursor to this. And it was a short film, like a really short film. I don't know exactly how short, but and it was just those two characters, which is actually kind of one character, right?
Mhm.
And then so they made this, which is a shorter film than average, but is a film, and it's got one scene, it's got one locale, and it's got like 7 characters, right? But I could see like that's almost like an evolution of the film, and I could see another evolution of the film where it gets bigger, more stuff happens, it becomes a bigger film. I don't know if that would be worth it.
I don't need the film to be bigger. This is funny because I feel like if I listen to this later, I'm gonna be like, this has nothing to do with anything. But for some reason, I'm thinking of how I don't really like any of the Star Wars movies. The only one that I liked was Rogue One. I love Star Wars. I just would like it a lot better if somebody else directed the films. And I don't know why I'm thinking about that right now. But I always read about Star Wars.
You like the world, or what do you like about Star Wars?
I like the world and the characters. It's just you watch the film and the acting and the directing is like, I just
Right.
don't agree with it. With this,
Mm-hmm.
I don't need it to be bigger. I think that it could have the same characters. Just, I mean, another issue with Japan is that with these productions, which make up the majority, the actors are not always picked on their acting ability, they're picked on their popularity, which is why a lot of the girls or guys that you see in movies and shows are idols. They're signed to Johnny's or whatever agency. I hate to say this, but you get a lot of people that need work when it comes to their acting. Improving their acting is what I'm trying to say. As far as these people, I don't know, but I'm just saying in general. I don't like to think, oh, they should have did this and I would have enjoyed it. I don't like to think that way because it's their film. And if I don't enjoy it, I don't enjoy it. That's fine.
I love
Someone
to
else
think that
does.
way.
Well, I know you do because you always ask me this question. And every time you ask me, I roll my eyes in the back of my head. But no, I mean, the movie is what it is and it shouldn't be changed. Another thing that I want to go to is you can't even view it as a Rashomon story. It's like watching Ridley Scott's The Last Duel if it wasn't a Rashomon. So you're just repeating these three stories, but they're all told from Matt Damon's character's perspective rather than being told from Matt Damon. What's her name? Is it Jodie Comer?
I don't.
I think I want to say maybe not Jodie, but something Comer. And then what's the guy? Marriage Story, Star Wars.
Kylo Ren, Adam Driver.
Yeah, it's like, what do you... It's like, I'm not going to call him Kylo Ren. Adam Driver. It's as if you were hearing that story from The Last Duel told 3 to 4 times, but only from Matt Damon's perspective. So it just became very grating. And the reason why I'm not as upset about it is because that short runtime really, really helped. I can't even say I was disappointed because I didn't go into the film thinking it was going to be phenomenal, and I didn't go into the film thinking it was going to be horrible. I didn't know anything about this film. I chose not to look it up. I just like, whatever, I'm just watch it anyways. So I can't say I was disappointed, but I was definitely frustrated.
I could understand someone's frustration at having to see everything multiple times.
Do you know how many times I've seen those low-level gangsters in Japanese media doing that same bit, that same like sketch comedy bit? What are you doing, you dummy? And then the guy comes upstairs and he's all nonchalant, just going by. I was like, mate, I've seen this 80,000 times. I think my favorite character is definitely Megumi. I thought she brought warmth to the film. I thought that it was very clever when she said, I don't listen to music. And then she goes home and gets a symbol for him. And then we find out at the end that her former boyfriend was in a band and kind of filled her head with all these dreams of a great future, only to leave her once he found success. Even though he wrote about her in lyrics or whatever, he just discarded her just as quickly. So she just kind of had a disdain for that. So it wasn't like she didn't enjoy music. Mm-hmm. She just, as soon as he said he was in band, she just was like, oh, fuck, I don't think the message was on the surface or under the surface. I don't think the message was communicated.
What message?
As clear, but the message that the present is extremely important. Don't get stuck in the present because you're afraid to fail again from your past, and don't focus on too much on the uncertainty of the future. Just focus on what's now.
You don't think that was at the forefront enough?
Not really, no. I mean, at the end, he gives that little spiel to her about why he decided to not drink whatever the crack powder was. But I felt like his character could have used a moment, just a brief moment, in where his kind of apathy dwindled just a bit. He was kind of one note throughout the film. You could see in the end when he was listening to her talk.
He was happy.
Yeah, you could get a glimmer of it, but I think the film would have benefited a bit more if he had been directed differently when he was given that spiel to her about why he decided not to take the powder,
Yeah.
I think the best part about the film, outside of them coming together to make this film, was that ending talk that the both of them had. And I was like, it's a shame because this moment was a really nice, quiet moment. In my head, I've always had this category of film where I've kind of labeled as like cozy movies that you just get tea and watch. Mm-hmm. It's not like this big bombastic plot or anything. It's just a relaxing, natural film. And 2 films always pop in my head when I think of it. It's Jump Tomorrow, and it is Temporada de Pato, Duck Season, which is one of my favorite films still to this day. I saw it as a kid. Those are good little movies. And I feel like, man, if only this movie had the solid directing that was given to the actors at the end, if only that was kind of like sprinkled in a little bit more throughout this 70 minutes, this film could have made that list. But in the grand scheme of things, I couldn't say I enjoyed this movie because I literally enjoyed the last 3 to 4 minutes.
Yeah, I think I'm unsullied by the cultured history you have, and that's why it's easier for me to take, but I agree it could have been better with a different acting style. I think it's funny that when you said it is what it is and it shouldn't be changed, right?
Right.
Because it wasn't your vision,
It's not. I hate when people they should have did this. Or people start their stupid petitions. I don't like Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I don't like the other Justice League. However, I'm not going to message him and be like, you should have did this. It's his vision. It's not yours.
Well, the thing about Zack Snyder, I think, is slightly off because
We can leave Zach for the end. I apologize for bringing him up. I need to come up with different examples because I know if we bring up Zach, which I did, so I'm in the wrong.
I can, say what I was going to say without saying his name, but because if somebody says, like me, for instance, if I'm hypothesizing on a movie and what I think should have happened or what I think should have been better, I don't think that has to take away from the original film. You can imagine an alternate version of the film and the original film, and I feel like you should be able to appreciate both. More ideas, more creativity brought to the story. That's like part of the reason why we make art, right? So that people can discuss it.
I think what it is that what you're saying is different from what's typically done. Whereas other people are usually saying this is what it should have
the
been.
right way.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, but even if somebody says this is the right way to do it, right? You still can go back and watch the old way. So, even if they said that, you still have both. The world is bigger.
It doesn't delete the original work, but I find it incredibly pompous to look at someone else's work that they completed and they put out there and to you to be like, this is the correct way. Let's say like Hans Zimmer does a score for, I don't know, Captain America 7, okay? And people don't like one of the songs. And then the name of the song is, I don't know, America's Hero. And then somebody on YouTube puts America's Hero, but fixed. You don't think that's incredibly pompous and arrogant? Honestly, it's all about wording. In a way, I am answering your question when you ask me because I point out my issues with it and I give different examples, but I don't dare like approach it as if like I am the one true person that's right because it's an opinion. And too often these corrections are not given as opinions, they're given as facts. The way that you think about it, I wouldn't put you in the category of the person that gives it as facts. But I don't want to be remotely near that pool of people. So I just choose to explain how I feel under my perspective in my way, as you do in yours. I don't know if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying.
I mean, we can keep talking about the movie. The ending really was charming, though. And I was also happy that she didn't like there was no kiss scene or anything, just because I was like, let's not force a romance out of this. For all this time stuff to be happening, they're pretty nonchalant about it.
It's hard for me, and you've maybe seen a lot more movies than I have, but I've always been interested in like supernatural films and TV shows where there's always got to be somebody comes to their friend and is like, hey, don't freak out, I'm a vampire, or oh, don't freak out, I'm a superhero, or right? And then you have to have that actor on the other side, this normal person, act like someone would if they're introduced to a whole new world of like magic. And like, how do you do that? Most people can't relate to that experience. Maybe. I mean, people should because they were children, but
yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, I think everyone can, unless you were just locked in a room with a blindfold.
But when you were a child, you wouldn't react the same way to things, right?
What do you mean? You wouldn't react to things the same way?
To being introduced to magic. As a child, you would react differently than an adult.
I disagree.
Okay. Well, one way to show it is to show someone acting like a child, right? Channeling their inner child. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it, is there's the line like, oh, the famous line, you look like someone who's accepting what they see because they believe they're dreaming, right?
That's another way to look at it.
That's another way to do it. So there's so many ways to do it, and I don't know, like I can imagine how I would react. I've like practiced how I would react. I've thought like, how do I want to be supportive? I don't want to freak out. I want to be the person who can handle somebody else's supernatural secrets. I want to project the image of someone who can take this information so that if somebody has information to give me, they know I can handle it.
Okay.
Which is generally different from what you want to show in movies, because in movies, people aren't a weirdo like me practicing, right? So I think it's difficult to realistically present that kind of reaction. Like, how should people react? Some people, wouldn't take it as that crazy, I don't think.
So when I said that everybody was pretty nonchalant about it, like Megumi comes in and she's just like, huh? And then a second later, she's like, yeah, all right. Kato is like, huh? Eh? And then he's like, all right, I don't know why this is happening, but it's happening.
I I thought that was hilarious. That he's like, okay, that's weird. I'm gonna go about my day.
I think a lot of our perspectives are probably gonna.
Conflict.
When you gave me a Japanese film, I was like, oh goodness, no. And it's because like I truly don't think you're into like the
No.
contemplative silence type films, and I think because you haven't
And those
seen
are the
as
only
much as.
Japanese films you like.
I'm not gonna say it's not the only, because I'm sure to me that's like saying people that's like, oh, I don't like country or I don't like heavy metal, and I'm like, well, have you heard every country or heavy metal song? You know, it's like when I buy shooting games, like one shooting game maybe like every like 5 or 6 years. I do not play shooting games often. Okay,
Mhm.
but when I get one, it'll be one that has like a review score of 6 out of 10, which is not good for gaming review scores. And I'll play it and I'm like, man, this was fun as hell. And it's because I'm not used to the mechanics that are there.
And all the tropes, yeah.
I don't experience them often. So for me, I'm like, man, this was fun. And for other
Yeah.
people, it's like, bro, this is the same thing over and they're like, what are you talking about? And that's kind of how I feel when I was watching this. I was like, MadKat Melody is gonna feel completely opposite of me for these reasons.
I know you like slice of life, and you say that I don't like slice of life,
You
right?
don't, you don't.
So it makes sense to me that you're like, oh, if you had had more scenes like that, the movie would have been more palatable. Whereas to me,
That's not what I said.
okay,
I said if you
sorry.
would have directed them with care, like you did in that moment, and sprinkled that care in throughout the film at little like various points, then it would have been more palatable. But
Okay,
pretty much what I said. But go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
You gotta get. You can't. I don't want you to make an argument off something I didn't say.
But to me, the the movie as it was, like, that was such a change, the ending, a slow
Yeah.
down, warm ending. I appreciated the contrast because the whole movie, I'm, like, jumping back and forth,
Hmm.
watching them. It's fast-paced. It's, like, light and funny and fluffy,
Yeah.
and then you get to the end, and it's kinda like at the end of a race when you get lemonade or, like, on a hot day jumping into the pool.
Fucking
It's like
sugary ass lemonade after you ran a marathon, you're gonna fucking die.
but it's like a reward at the end for getting through all of it, you know?
Yeah, it was a good counter to the majority of the tone that the film had prior to. Yeah, I'll agree with you on that.
And I would say the biggest impact on whether I like a movie or not tends to be the ending. So if like
Really? Wow. Would you say you fall into the category of, I was just talking to my mates about this. Would you say you fall into the category of, if you watch a film and the ending is horrible, are you going to say, man, that movie sucked?
I'm not gonna say it sucked, but what I like doing, I like recommending movies. And if the ending is bad, I feel like I can't recommend the movie because I can't be like, oh, watch it until the last 15 minutes to shut it off.
So what if the ending is amazing, but everything else is horrible? Not referring to this movie because this movie's not horrible.
See, that helps me because I feel like, I mean, I might still not recommend it because if most of it is horrible, I don't expect anybody to sit through most of a movie that they don't like. But if the ending is good, I feel less like I wasted my time because it should have led up to that. Like, oh, this is why we were doing this. Like, if it's your birthday and somebody blindfolds you and they're like walking you through an impossibly long series of stairs and corridors, you're like, oh my god, just show me what you're. But if you get to the end and the party is worth it, then it's like you understand why you had to go through
I think that's an amazing analogy, but I cannot apply it to film. I
that.
can't. All the components that make a film, if the ending is great, but the movie, or not even great, because it can't be great in my opinion, if the ending is just more enjoyable than what you've been getting. Call that the glass is half empty type of outlook, but that's just how I view
Maybe
it.
it's how I watch movies because sometimes I'll watch a movie thinking I like it until I get to the end because the reason I thought I liked it is because I was like, "Ooh, this is leading somewhere good."
Mm,
And then I get to the end and I was like, "Ooh, I was misled," you know? So
mm.
I can enjoy a movie even if not a lot of stuff is happening if I think something's going to happen, right?
Okay. I feel like that's Dune. I feel like you just described.
Dune?
I feel
No,
like
see, here's the problem with Dune. Are we going to talk about Dune?
we can talk about it as a second. It's still fresh in my mind, but I would close this one out.
Okay, well, what I was going to say about this movie is it's a gimmick movie, right?
I feel like that's meaner than everything I said.
Gimmick, I like gimmicks. I'm a
Okay.
gimmick fan.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
So, number one, you come to a movie to see, if you come to a movie to see a gimmick, like if I go to, and now that you said it sounds mean, I feel bad saying this, But if I go to a Jackie Chan movie, right?
Don't disrespect Jackie Chan. I'm gonna reach to his phone and slap the hell out you. Go ahead.
I feel like Jackie Chan has his own gimmick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody goes to a Jackie Chan movie to see Jackie Chan do his thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I came to this movie to see. I was like, clearly they're not going to make a whole movie of just a guy talking to a TV 2 minutes in the future. If they call it Beyond the Infinite 2 minutes and it's about a guy who has a time traveling TV set, they're going to try and stretch out this concept. So the gimmick to me was to see like all the stuff that's going to happen from this small thing, right? And so I came for the gimmick. And to me, they delivered on the gimmick. Even if they didn't deliver on like the emotional impact of the characters, I came for the infinite time tunnel and like the joke where they show the apocalyptic poster and they're like, "Ah, we got you," and where the girl's like, "Oh, we don't want to, make a paradox, so you have to lie to yourself," and he has
Yeah.
trauma because as a kid he believed in Nostradamus, and then like all the items, I know it's silly, all the items they got over the course of the movie come back in the final action scene. Like the gimmick of time travel in the movie is what I came for, and I felt like I got what I came for.
Yeah, okay. I felt like Asakura Aki, who plays Megumi, the barber's daughter, I felt like everybody probably knows a Aki, or at least wants to know a Aki. I felt like she just felt very natural in comparison to everyone else. This film is like a really bright and unique kid that had all these different stories or whatever. And rather than throwing away their dreams of creating stories as they got older and, taking a route that their parents may have wanted them to take, like lawyer or dentist, whatever the usuals, they stuck to it and they created this as their first project. Although I found the film unenjoyable, I think that's something that makes me appreciate it a lot.
That's a better review than I could have given.
If I made this film, and let's say I didn't shoot it on digital or whatever, I would take like the film reel and I would frame it. I would be proud to say that this was my first movie. Somebody listens to this, they're gonna be like, "But you said it was unenjoyable."
That guy understands you more than you know. He gets it.
Yeah, if you do want to watch this movie, it is on Amazon Prime right now. It's probably on some other stuff. I don't know what, but it is. What's the name of the movie?
Beyond the Infinite 2 minutes.
And it is directed by Yamaguchi Junta as his directorial debut. It's a debut to be proud of, that's for sure. All right, that wraps it up. Until next time.
Ciao.